This week, Bobby Hamilton's sitting in a fast-track seat. Now the Cup guys are heading to the flat track, and Hamilton's got his eyes on the Martinsville prize.
When you have a taste of running good and a taste of running up front a lot, like I got at Petty Enterprises, you want to get that back. You can settle for nothing less than, you want to run top 10 every week.
Sitting fifth in Busch Series points ain't so bad, but Randy LaJoie knows this season's gotten off on a bad note.
I think this one's going to be more satisfying if I sit at the head table, because, this is the farthest we've been behind in 2.5 years, and now we're only racing, like I said, we're racing 5 cars, not 1, and it's a different story when you race 5 of those guys instead of 1.
The pros know getting rattled by a stock car at 180 miles per hour can give you a little headache. We'll go inside the mind of a driver, sidelined.
I am conscious of the fact that I don't need to continue to compound the problem by having more and more and more concussions without taking a break. And taking a break is what the doctor ordered.
Plus, DW with the quick way around Martinsville.
Like the first time I went there, a guy told me, well, you just go down here and turn left. And then you go down there and you turn left again.
The flat track awaits inside NASCAR.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside NASCAR. After a week off, the Winston Cup gang is back in action at Martinsville's half-mile venue in Henry County, Virginia. It's the second short-track race of the season. Jeff Gordon was the winner at last month's Food City 500 in Bristol. Weather is once again a concern in Martinsville. Last year's fall race, you may remember, had to be postponed till Monday. As for the forecast today, they're calling for variable cloudiness with scattered showers and thunderstorms. But let's get the latest now from our Ned Jarrett, Phil Wers, and Stephanie Boyd-Durner, who are in Martinsville. Guys, take it away.
Well, thanks, Tyler, and good morning, everyone. I'm joined here on pit road at the Martinsville Speedway by Stephanie Boyd-Durner and Phil Wers. The weather is a little bit iffy for the Goodies Headache Powders 500 this afternoon. But, Phil, when we do get it underway, we're going to have some drivers in cars that normally aren't in them because of injuries.
Ned, a lot of drivers banged up. In baseball, you hear about the disabled list, and in football, you hear about injured reserve. Well, in today's Goodies 500, no less than 5 drivers are going to be substituted for. Darrell Waltrip is hoping to relive past glory at Martinsville. He is second in all-time victories at this track with 11. He'll look for number 12 as he continues to substitute for the injured Steve Park. Morgan Shepherd takes over once again in the Lowe's Chevy for Mike Skinner. Skinner re-aggravated injuries he initially suffered at Atlanta in a crash at Texas 2 weeks ago. Randy LaJoie is spending this weekend once again driving the number 50 Budweiser Monte Carlo for Ricky Craven. Craven will be out until later this summer as he recovers from post-concussion syndrome. Elsewhere on the medical chart, Diamond Ridge Motorsports driver Jeff Green will hop into the Gumout Pontiac in a substitute role for Derek Cope. Cope re-injured the ribs he banged up initially at Atlanta during a crash at Texas. Green, who is expected back at Talladega next week after reorganization by the Diamond Ridge Motorsports team, says he's grateful for the opportunity to drive for Bahari Racing.
I think we've got an excellent race car for this weekend once we get in the race. We tested here last week, and probably the best car I've ever had. I mean, I've never been here a lot, but it's the best car I've had here for sure. And the thing turns in the middle of the corner and don't have to use a lot of brakes. So that's the best of both worlds here.
And with Greg Sachs nursing an injury from Texas, Rich Bickle brings his short track savvy to Martinsville for Cale Yarborough Motorsports and the Thornapple Valley team.
I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to come up here and do a good job for them. And if I do a good job and, other people see that, maybe I'll get some more opportunities down the road.
In other news, Corey Stott is the new crew chief for Sterling Marlin and the Coors Light number 40 team. The appointment ends a 7-week search to find a replacement for Buddy Barnes. The 36-year-old Stott helped Jimmy Spencer to win the Busch Series race at Las Vegas earlier this season. Here's a question for you. Who's one of the hottest drivers in Winston Cup racing? Well, it's the driver of the Cheerios tourist, Johnny Benson. Since missing the season opener at Daytona, Benson has moved from 40th to 10th in points. It's his first appearance ever in the top 10, and his hot streak includes 5 straight top 5s. He hopes to keep it going at Martinsville, but his best finish here in 4 Cup events, 17th.
We'll just keep taking them as we can get them, but, if we feel that if we can finish in the top 10 and top 5s enough, hopefully we'll win one of these things, and that's kind of what the goal is.
Benson joins teammates Mark Martin and Jeff Burton in the top 10. It's the first time that's happened since Hendrick Motorsports teammates Jeff Gordon, Terry Labonte, and Ricky Craven finished 1, 2, 3 in the 1997 Daytona 500. One other tidbit. 4 of the 5 Roush Racing drivers have finished at least one race in the top 5. Still trying to dial in the Prime Star Ford is Ted Musgrave. And hoping to get back to Martinsville's victory lane this weekend is Rusty Wallace. Jeff Gordon's win in the Goodies 500 last year ended his streak of 4 straight wins in this spring event. Wallace was poised for the win, but was penalized by a stop-and-go from NASCAR for jumping the restart. This particular car, Ronnie, that you brought, I don't want to say you brought it out of mothballs, but it's been a good car for you. Can it be a good car one more time?
Yeah, the car's perfect. The frame and cage assembly that we've had, it's been real good the whole time. I've never wrecked a car yet, thank God. And so when the season was over, the guys just took it all apart, rebuilt the whole entire chassis, put a brand new Ford Taurus body on it, and brought it out here, and it's running great. So it's been a good car. I had it at Martinsville here last year, both races. Then we took it to Phoenix and qualified third with it and led all day long and finished second to Jarrett. So it's been a good car out there, too. So I like it. And when a driver likes a car, he likes to stay with it no matter how old she is.
And that car is named Ronnie in honor of Ronnie Hopkins, a former chassis builder for Rusty Wallace. He died from cancer 3 years ago, but an incredible record by this car. It has 3 wins, 8 top 5s, 11 top 10s in 14 races. Also has completed 25% of its laps. That's pretty impressive.
Well, that is impressive, and I'd say he has a good chance to add to that record this afternoon in the Goodies Headache Powders 500 because he has been strong in practice.
And if we could add one more thing, now Dan Gatewood, who's a member of the number 18 Interstate Batteries team, he's recovering from 6 bypass surgery, resting comfortably, we understand, in Winston-Salem Hospital, but the team and us would like to send along our very best to him.
Well, we certainly do wish him the best. And now back to you, Tyler.
Okay, Ned and Phil, thanks for the report. We've got to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to head back to Martinsville to get the very latest on qualifying from Stephanie. If you can't wait till then, here are a couple of hints as to who the pole sitter is. He now has 5 career poles, and it just so happens that the driver is our In Focus feature later in the show. Stick around, we're coming right back.
Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Miller Lite, who reminds you that whenever you feel good, it's Miller.
Welcome back. It's time to find out who the pole sitter is for today's Goodies 500. Well, you didn't think I was going to tell you, did you? For the answer, let's head back out to Ned Jarrett, who's with Stephanie Boyd-Durner.
Well, thanks again, Tyler. In Bud Pole qualifying here on Friday afternoon for the Goodies Headache Powders 500, we saw the 8th different pole winner in 8 races so far this year. And Bobby Hamilton took the pole in the Kodak Film Chevrolet, Stephanie. That had to be a big boost for he and the team.
Yeah, they've really been struggling lately. In fact, he's dropped from 9th to 18th in points in just the last 4 races. But if there was any place they were going to turn things around, it would probably be here at Martinsville. While he was driving the 43 car, Hamilton has 6 straight top 10 finishes at this track. He's been in the top 3 in the last 3 races. And now here at Martinsville, after qualifying on Friday, he's got 2 career poles. 46 cars took to the clock to try and make the field for the Goodies 500, and by the time they were all done, only 0.7 of a second stood between them. David Green had a good lap to snag the 5th place starting spot, but right behind him, Johnny Benson blamed some light showers for slowing him down, and he had to take a provisional. The red flag came out after Benson's run, but about 10 minutes later, Hamilton took the Kodak car on the track and rounded it in 20.323 seconds at just over 93 miles an hour to set fast time. Ricky Rudd came close in his best qualifying effort of the season, but couldn't quite touch Hamilton and will start 4th. After running an identical lap to Jeff Gordon, who starts 3rd by virtue of being ahead of Rudd in points. The guy who separates them from the pole sitter is the guy who has more wins here in the 90s than any other driver with 5 victories. Points leader Rusty Wallace was only 2 1/1000ths of a second off the pole speed, but again that honor went to who? No, not Sterling Marlin, but the guy who replaced him at Morgan McClure Racing, Bobby Hamilton.
I had 2 guys picked, and it was Rusty and Jeremy. They was just on my mind because they've been so good this year, but when Rusty is on the outside pole, I think we qualified like that once here a couple years ago, and I said, man, this is going to be great if me and him start on the front row either way, because I want to tell you, he's a blast to race here. He's always standing up in that seat, and you always see his elbow up in there in the corners, and I just love racing him here. It's a lot of fun.
Other notable drivers, Darrell Waltrip had his best qualifying effort of the season to start 14th. Pinch hitter Rich Bickle starts 11th, and second-place pointsman Jeremy Mayfield nailed down the 13th starting spot and a much-coveted front-stretch pit stall. As for Dale Earnhardt, he's once again on the backstretch after qualifying 31st. He didn't get a chance to try and better it, as second-round qualifying was canceled after some brief showers Saturday morning. Among the provisionals, Terry Labonte, Roush teammates Benson and Chad Little, and Jeff Green subbing for Derek Cope, while Wally Dallenbach was among the 3 drivers who went home. Well, Ned, this may be Bobby Hamilton's 5th career pole, but there's something a little different this time. Remember when he was driving for Petty Enterprises, he won 4 other poles. They didn't run the beer decal, so he didn't get into the Bud Shootout. Now he doesn't have that problem. He says, I'm in the Bud Shootout for 1999. And Sterling Marlin's going to have to find another spotter, because that's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
Well, he's excited about that, and rightly so. Hey, you got a favorite for today's race?
I don't know. Rusty's been running so strong in practice. He starts 2nd. I think I'm going to have to go with him.
How about you, Phil?
Jeff Gordon and Rusty look tough, but I like Rusty to get back on that streak.
Well, he's going to be the man to beat, no question about it. Tyler, back to you.
All right, guys, great job up there. We appreciate it. Hey, before we go, a couple of notes on today's Craftsman Truck Series race out in Phoenix. Stacy Compton will start from the pole for the first time in his truck career. Rookie Andy Houston is on the outside of row 1. Jerry Glanville had qualified 31st, but he will miss the race today because of a crash yesterday in Winston West qualifying. He broke several ribs and his left ankle, but he was awake and alert afterwards. We wish him well, and we're out of time. Here are the first 5 rows. The feature portion of the show is next. See ya.
Welcome back to the feature portion of Inside NASCAR. I'm Ned Jarrett, along with Tyler Potter. And Tyler, we have a lot in store for the fans.
We sure do. Now we're going to talk to Randy LaJoie, Bobby Hamilton, Ricky Craven, and we're heading to Martinsville, so it's going to be exciting.
Well, it always is there. And who better to take us on the inside line at the Martinsville Speedway than one of the winningest drivers at that half-mile track, Darrell Waltrip.
First time I went there, a guy told me, well, you just go down here and turn left. And then you go down there and you turn left again. We always say it's 2 drag strips with a corner on each end. That's about what it feels like. You got a curve around the inside, so you just rub your left wheel around the curve all the way through the corner, and that's the fast way around the racetrack. But there's some transitions there between concrete through the turns up onto the straightaway where the asphalt is, and the car will go through some gyrations sometime when you come off that concrete onto that asphalt. Now you're going really fast down those long straightaways. When you get to the other end, you got to get on those brakes and lock it down and get it stopped so you can take off again. Martinsville is unique in a number of ways. Not so much as how you drive it, because it's really a simple racetrack to drive, although a lot of people have trouble with it.
Well, thanks, Darrell. And who better to take us around that Martinsville Speedway than Darrell Waltrip, because he has a lot of experience and a lot of good experience there. He leads all active drivers with 8 poles in 46 races there.
Hasn't won a race since '92, Ned, but he also leads all active Winston Cup drivers with 11 victories at Martinsville.
And there have been 102 races at the Martinsville Speedway since it opened back in 1949, 97 Winston Cup races, and 5 for the old convertible division. Tyler, the first 500 lap race at the Martinsville Speedway was the Virginia 500 in 1956. Guess who won that race?
I knew this was coming. I couldn't tell you, but I can probably find out here. Buck Baker won the race.
Hey, how about that? Good for you.
I'm going to try to stump you now. In the modern era, since 1972, who was the farthest back to start a race in the Goodies 500 and win at Martinsville?
I would guess Darrell Waltrip, maybe.
You got that? Do you know where he started from?
Probably outside the top 20.
Oh, close. 20th. You almost got it.
Well, he certainly knows how to get around that racetrack, and he knows how to conserve his brakes. Let's go in pick and talk about the brakes at Martinsville.
Hello, my name's Ben Holm, car chief for the number 46 First Union Monte Carlo driven by Wally Dallenbach. Today we're going to talk about brakes.
This is our Martinsville car. As you can see, the front end is taped up pretty much for qualifying. For the race, on the other hand, we'll open up these ducts here by peeling the tape off to allow air to go through these brake duct openings, through these hoses, and into these carbon fiber spindle ducts, which transfers air across the caliper and the rotor. As you can see on the short track, we run very large brakes. A large rotor that's finned to help pull air to keep everything cool, a large caliper, and very large brake pads. On the other hand, this is a speedway brake system we'll run next week at Talladega. You can see how thin the rotor is, how small the caliper is, and how small the brake pads are. Another thing we monitor at a short track race is brake caliper temperature. We run a little thermostat on here, and during happy hour we periodically check to see how much brake temperature the caliper is getting. We make adjustments as necessary to keep it cool. Hopefully this weekend, keep our brakes cool and have a little patience. We'll be up front with the first Union Monte Carlo.
Two-time NASCAR Busch Grand National champion Randy LaJoie is not having the kind of year that he and most of his fans expected in 1998 in the NASCAR Busch Series. He is at the Martinsville Speedway this weekend, subbing for Ricky Craven in the Budweiser Chevrolet number 50. But certainly his performance in the Busch Series is not what everybody expected, certainly not what he and his team expected up to this point. Stephanie Boyd-Durner talked to him about the year he's having.
For the past 2 seasons, Randy LaJoie has reigned over the NASCAR Busch ranks as the series champion. But if he wants to make history as the first driver to make it 3 straight, he's definitely got his work cut out for him. Bad luck has cost him a couple of potentially strong finishes this season, and after scoring 5 victories in each of the past 2 years, he has yet to break into the win column in '98. But his record of no wins, 1 top 5 and 4 top 10 finishes this year is almost identical to his run through the first 8 races of the 1996 season, the same year he won his first Busch Series crown.
Can you win a title when you have tough luck even at the very beginning of the season?
It doesn't help. I mean, you know, we've wrecked more this year than I have in the last 2 years. Oh yeah, we can win this thing. I mean, you got to have luck. I mean, you got to win races too. I mean, for the last 2 years, we won 5 races each year, and we led a lot of laps. So that helps. I mean, it makes you more money, but you got to lead races to win races, and that's what we did to win the championship. So I don't think we could go in there and win 3 races and win a championship. I think we got to get after it and win at least 5.
Right now, LaJoie is 5th in points, 142 behind leader Dale Earnhardt Jr. Between them are Matt Kenseth, Elliott Sadler, and Mike McLaughlin.
Last year, you and Todd Bodine were so neck and neck. This year, you got kids like Earnhardt Jr. and Elliott Sadler, Kenseth, these guys. How tough are they going to be, and how tough are they going to make it on you?
Real tough. I've said that all, you know, starting last year. There's going to be 5 or 6 guys who are going to race. You got McLaughlin and Hermie got some experience. They're going to run good. Those teams are good. The 3 team for the last 3 or 4 years has been really good. Last year, Parks come on, you know, from midway through the year, he was one of the strongest cars, if not the strongest car. They took him out the picture and put Little Lee in it, and man, he's done a great job, and that car's been good. And that team is very good. Elliott Sadler does a great job. He has a great race team. Matt Kenseth, I said right along, he's going to be a sleeper in this deal. You know, those first 4 guys have all won a race, too. Mark Martin hasn't won a race yet this year in the Busch Series. Jeff Burton hasn't. So, I mean, we're not ready to hit the panic button because those guys, you know, they're trying their hardest, too, and they haven't won.
What about on the Winston Cup side? Obviously, you're filling in for Ricky Craven right now. A chance to run for Hendrick Motorsports, one of the stoutest teams in the business. Yet, do you worry at all about it taken away from your Busch program?
I think it's going to help. It helps me as a driver because I wouldn't have thought the difference was that big, but there's a big difference from the Busch car to the Cup car. After you get out of the Cup car and you step back in the Busch car, it's a whole lot easier. It makes your Busch car easier because you just feel a little bit bigger than the car, so it's making me a better Busch driver. If it's taken away from anything, I'm not giving 100% on the Winston Cup side because I need a little more time to sit there and think about what the car's doing. And it's hard to get in a rhythm on the Winston Cup side. On the Busch side, I get a good rhythm going. We go for long times in practice, so I can get a good feel for the car. Me and Bertie work great together, you know, and Billy Nazowitz. And, you know, they know what kind of feel I'm looking for, and they usually give it to me, you know, and we usually get it good because we communicate well, and it's hard to communicate on the Winston Cup side, I found, because you're only running 2 laps at a clip. I mean, you go out there and you run 2 laps and you come in and you try something. Man, it's hard to get a rhythm going. But the Budweiser car has given me some good cars. We've qualified in the top 25. You know, I just want to kind of fill in for these guys, not embarrass myself. You know, we run well. I mean, outside of Darlington, we run good at Bristol, and we had a good car at Texas, and you know, we're going to do fine. You know, I'm just going to fill in. I just want to help those guys out because, you know, one day down the road, Hendricks Motorsports might be able to help me out, and that's fine.
You've said for the last couple of years that you're happy in Busch, that you'd like to stay there. Yet, when you got into this Winston Cup car, I did hear you say that, you know, you wanted to prove to some people that you could drive a Cup car, especially your former Winston Cup owner, Bill Davis. Do you feel like you have something to prove?
I did, you know. But, I mean, I think what we've done the last couple of years in the Busch Series, in the IROC car, you know, okay. You know, you did it, you know, and, okay, I proved my point, you know, and one of these days, you know, something else might happen, but, you know, I don't have to prove nothing this year, and the Winston Cup it's hard racing, you know, and I am very happy in the Busch Series. I got a great race team, great car owner, great sponsors, associate sponsors, and life is good right now. I mean, I'm enjoying my family, so I'm really using this Cup deal to see what I want to do, you know, and I'll see how much money I'm going to make, but I don't think it's worth it right now because I'd like the time off, and we don't get a lot of it in Winston Cup racing.
That's why LaJoy says he's content to just fill in a few times a year, instead concentrating his efforts on trying to win yet another Busch Series title.
We can do it. I mean, I think this one's going to be more satisfying if I sit at the head table because, I mean, this is the farthest we've been behind in 2.5 years, you know, and now we're only racing, like I said, we're racing 5 cars, not 1, you know, and it's a different story when you race 5 of those guys instead of 1. You know, now you got to be 5 of those guys.
No easy task, even for a 2-time champion. But one thing is for sure, the race for this year's Busch Series title will be one heck of a battle, and you can bet Randy LaJoy will be in the thick of it.
Randy LaJoy will not be able to compete in the full Winston Cup season, Ed, because he's got his prior commitments with the NASCAR Busch Series, and that's where his focus is. He wants that 3rd straight Busch crown.
And he's still in good position to do it, 5th in the point standings. Their next race is at the Talladega Superspeedway next Saturday. We'll be back with more on Inside NASCAR right after this.
Coming up, for Ricky Craven, most of the '98 season may be seen from the NASCAR bench. You'll see why NASCAR is giving a few guys some time off.
Standing here talking to you, I feel 100%. I'm doing exercises and rehabilitation which induce the symptoms, and if I start doing those, I can tell you I'm not close to 100%.
We'll highlight Darrell Waltrip's reign at Martinsville, plus Bobby Hamilton in focus.
Given the nature of stock car racing, crashes and injuries can and do happen. We got a lot of drivers who are currently sitting out with various types of injuries, but one of the biggest concerns of race drivers in the injury department are head injuries. Ricky Craven is going through that right now. He had a concussion more than a year ago and is sitting out recuperating. Phil Wurz talked to him recently about that injury and what it might do for his future.
Given the nature of NASCAR Winston Cup racing, there are sometimes situations where spectacular crashes can and do happen. We all hold our breath when any driver is put into a bad situation, especially on larger tracks where it seems the faster the speed, the greater the chance for serious injury. We've already seen our share of drivers' injuries in 1998, but there's one crash from early in 1997 that is still affecting one driver today. April 1997. Ricky Craven's Budweiser Monte Carlo is involved in a crash at Texas Motor Speedway. Craven appeared to recover quickly from his injuries. Through thorough rehabilitation, Craven returned to race at Martinsville a couple of weeks later. But Craven re-aggravated those injuries by hitting a wall hard at Phoenix at the end of last season, and then he began 1998 with a hard lick during one of the qualifying races at Daytona. Presently, Craven is still being haunted by that initial concussion he suffered at Texas more than 1 year ago, an injury that will see him sidelined through much of the summer.
Well, I had been having some difficulty in the car under different circumstances, but also some inconsistency just every day. You know, I felt great some days, but other days didn't feel so good, and that inconsistency concerned me.
Until Randy LaJoie filled in as driver of the number 50 Budweiser Chevy at Darlington, Craven assumed everything was all right. Since his initial injuries at Texas last season, Craven competed in 28 races, amassing 6 top 10s and 2 top 5s. His average finish, 21st. Then doctors diagnosed him with post-concussion syndrome. They told Craven that he needed to get out of the car and rest.
It's not what I wanted to hear. You know, it was the day before qualifying at Darlington, and I had I wanted him to tell me that I was fine, that I had a touch of the flu, or it's not what I heard. And the reality that sunk in that, hey, I'm going to be sitting on the sidelines a while, and this is pretty serious, and I need to pay attention. The doctors made it clear that part of the recovery is just taking some time off, and although I'm not at any risk right now by having another concussion, I certainly don't need to go out and do it. And for that reason, we're going to take a minimum of 3 months off and evaluate ourselves once a month. The doctors will give us their opinion on where I stand and how the exercises and rehabilitation is working. And again, we'll evaluate that as far as where we are in the season. I want to be back July 1st. It's not necessarily consistent with their goals.
Obviously, Craven is not the first driver to ever be sidelined with an injury, specifically a concussion. Most recently, Tim Steele came to Daytona fully expecting to drive Bud Moore's entry in this year's 500. But due to the effects of a lingering concussion, he was not cleared to race and is yet to be given clearance to get back into a race car. For Craven, it's a daily battle, trying to balance his need to rehabilitate slowly and completely versus the immediate desire to get back into a race car.
As long as I'm not assuming any unreasonable risk, I want to race. Wrecking is an element of the sport, and perhaps a concussion or two goes along with that. I can live with that. Again, it's never concerned me in the past. It doesn't concern me now. That's why I know I still want to race. But I'm not foolish enough to tell you that I'm not concerned about my family or my children. If the doctors ever tell me that, hey, Ricky, this is pretty serious, you can't afford another concussion, well, that's reason for concern. I'm certainly not at that stage now.
So for now, Randy LaJoie will run Craven's ride at Martinsville. Some reports have Robbie Gordon taking over later this summer at the Brickyard, and perhaps as soon as the California 500 in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, Craven finds it hard to see anyone else but him in the number 50 car and wants to deflect any rumors that he'll never run another race for Hendrick Motorsports.
Unless you've heard one from Mr. Hendrick, I've been assured that it's my ride. It was there when I came to Hendrick Motorsports, and it'll be there when I get back. I think that what everybody's uncomfortable with is when am I coming back, and I wish I could tell you that. I don't know, but I'll be back in the Budweiser number 50. Hopefully sooner than later.
Most of us know Ricky's suffering from post-concussion syndrome. What a lot of people don't know, Ned, is that he had major reconstructive knee surgery last week. That's a lot to recover from it. No wonder it's going to keep him out of action for about 3 months.
Well, that's true, but it was a good time to do it since he's on the sidelines anyway. We'll be back with more on Inside NASCAR, including a story on Bobby Hamilton after this.
The year before last, they worked so hard to get that race team going, and we communicated so well together. Then all of a sudden we have a bunch of top 10 finishes, a couple of poles, and we win Phoenix. Then Petty Enterprises takes on the second team, you know. And like Richard told me, he said, you can't hold that against me. I said, I don't hold it against you.
As we continue to celebrate NASCAR's 50th anniversary in 1998, and since the race is at Martinsville, Virginia this weekend, it's only appropriate that we take a look at Darrell Waltrip's career at the Martinsville Speedway. Now, a lot of new fans might not know that much about Darrell and the success that he has had. You know, he's a 3-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion and has had more success on that half-a-mile track than anyone excepting Richard Petty. We've already established the fact that he has 11 victories at that half-a-mile track. So let's take a deeper look at his career there.
The all-time winningest driver at Martinsville is Richard Petty with a total of 15. His last victory on the Virginia half-miler was in 1979. Second on the all-time winning list is Darrell Waltrip with a total of 11. His wins at Martinsville spanned from 1976 to 1989. In 1983, he was the reigning NASCAR Winston Cup champion when he went to Martinsville driving the Pepsi Challenger for Junior Johnson. On that day, the half-mile bull ring collected its share of victims. A number of drivers found it hard to stay headed in the right direction. But it was no trouble for Darrell Waltrip as he went on to take his second win of 1983.
No, just to run hard as we could and then finish, and try not to have any trouble. Brakes were a factor, but it not being so hot, that helps a whole lot. And stopping and starting was a little bit of a concern, but that didn't seem to cause any problems for us. Everything just went pretty smooth.
In 1984, Waltrip was still driving for Junior Johnson. However, his car changed quite a bit, from the yellow Pepsi Challenger to the white Budweiser-sponsored number 11. Waltrip's teammate at that time was Neil Bonnet. This race had its share of mishaps. That's Lenny Pond in the 71. And rookie Phil Parsons in the 66, along with Tommy Ellis in the 4 and a few others, put up a roadblock in turn 1. But up front, Waltrip was the class of the field and took one of his 7 1984 victories. In 1987, Waltrip's year wasn't near as good as he wanted. In fact, his Haynes 500 win at Martinsville was his only victory that year, driving the Tide number 17 for Rick Hendrick. Here's how he did it. Dale Earnhardt was leading. Terry Labonte, now driving the Budweiser number 11, was second. On the last lap in turn 3, Labonte and Earnhardt get together. Labonte goes up the track, the camera pans left, and look, it's Darrell Waltrip taking the checkered flag.
Oh, it's been so tough all year long trying to win, and had a good enough car to win today. And one time I called a shot to stay out, and it ended up hurting us because we had to pit under the green there, and we didn't know Earnhardt was going to stop again. So when he come up there racing me at the end of the race, there wasn't nothing I could do. I was out of tires. I told Jeff on the radio, I said, I know how a coach feels now when the other team runs up the score on him. I said, looks like they're trying to run the score up on us. Then he dove in the pit. Then the dadgum caution come out, and I said, holy mackerel, look at here, we got another shot at it, and it was really neat.
1989 was the year Darrell Waltrip finally conquered Daytona, winning the 500. It was also the year he swept Martinsville, taking his final 2 wins on the track, where over the years he had been so successful. 3-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion Darrell Waltrip, the winningest active driver at Martinsville.
Tyler, it's been almost 10 years since DW won at Martinsville, but I'm sure in his mind that he still has at least another win in him.
Well, he just might, and I'm sure he probably feels pretty good about going back to Martinsville, especially being with Dale Earnhardt now.
Yeah, Dale Earnhardt has had a lot of good winning experience on that half-a-mile track, and so maybe he'll pass along some of that knowledge to the number 1 Pennzoil car. We'll be back with Bobby Hamilton, who might have a good shot at winning at Martinsville. We'll go in focus with him after this.
Hi, I'm Richard Petty, and I want to wish NASCAR a happy 50th anniversary.
Welcome back to Inside NASCAR. Bobby Hamilton changed rides during the off-season. He did drive for the Richard Petty STP Pontiac team. He now drives the Morgan McClure Kodak Film Chevrolet. And 1998 hasn't started out the way that he had hoped for, I'm sure.
It has not, Ned, and I tell you what, considering the success he's had the past 2 years with Petty when he had a win in each of those years, I'm sure he's counting on that first win coming for Kodak coming pretty soon. But it has been a struggle, but he says there's no place he'd rather be. When Morgan McClure Motorsports decided not to retain driver Sterling Marlin, they turned to Bobby Hamilton. Talk about apples and oranges, the 4-team and its super speedway success versus Bobby's short track prowess. 9 combined wins at Daytona and Talladega for Morgan McClure to 16 top 10s in 51 short track starts for Hamilton. So who's adjusting to who?
I think before it's over with, I think you'll see them come right back and be real strong on super speedways again. And then I think I think I can help them pick up their short track program. That was sort of our agreement. He told me, he said, you help my intermediate stuff and short track stuff, and I'll promise you a speedway win. I've been labeled a short track driver my whole racing career, and I've never won a short track race. The races I've won has been a mile or better, so I don't know how I keep getting labeled at that. I do run good at them, but I think the nature of it is I think I'm a better flat track driver than a short track driver.
But before they can get the finishes they want, they first have to work on qualifying. Since Vegas, the team has qualified 41st, 41st, 38th, 40th, and 25th. That's not getting it done.
It's hard to start 40th every week in Winston Cup competition and expect to have a decent day. We did it. We did it Rockingham. We started 40th, I think, and finished 9th, and we started 40th at Bristol and was running 7th when we cut a right front tire down on a lap car. So that's only 2 good races that we had decent runs with, you know. But it all goes right back to the qualifying. If you unload good enough that you qualify decent, then usually your race setup's pretty close too. That means you're unloading a pretty good car. So all we're trying to do is just focus on qualifying.
Enter Gary Dehart, the former crew chief for Terry Labonte, who was brought in as a consultant for that very reason. In his first race at Texas, Dehart paid instant dividends, helping the team qualify 25th, its best start since Daytona.
I think Gary has brought a little bit to the table right off the bat. I can't really put my finger on what it is. The biggest thing I think I noticed is everything's real basic now. You know, a driver will come in and tell the crew chief a couple of things, and the crew chief will tell the driver a couple of things, and the next thing you know, you're way out in left field, and there was nobody there to keep us from getting in left field. We got good mechanics on the car. Robert Larkin has been the crew chief, still is, and he does a good job, but I think we just needed somebody to say, oh, wait a minute. You know, you don't need to do this. You need to sort of stay around basics. Let's get a good basic race car again. Then when we got test time, we can try that other stuff. So I think it's been the biggest change.
To date, Hamilton has just one top 10 in the 4-car. Quite a contrast to the way he finished up in '97, when he posted 3 straight top 10s, including a win with Petty Enterprises.
I had Earnhardt say the other day, he said, well, your deal ain't going as good as your deal did last year, like that. And I said, no. I said, but I think it'll be all right. And he told me, he said, it will. You just need to bear with it. He said, because them guys have a good race team, you know. And that's what I seen. Larry told me, he said, this is the problems I got there. This is what we got to work through. You need to bear with me. I'll bear with you. Let's just work together. We can't fix it overnight. So I knew all this going in. But I'm completely, actually, and this is not in front of the camera, bullcrap or anything. I'm happy with what I'm doing right now because it's the same atmosphere as what Richard had over at Petty Enterprises. We don't like having bad runs, but I hadn't seen anybody throw their hands up. I hadn't seen any ranting and raving. All I've seen is people digging in and trying harder. Them guys are like me. When you have a taste of running good and a taste of running up front a lot, like I got at Petty Enterprises, you want to get that back.
It wasn't that long ago that both parties were successful. Matter of fact, in '96, the 4 and the 43 team with Hamilton as driver were honored on stage in New York for finishing in the top 10 in points. Neither's been back since.
Everybody's in it for the long haul, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it back there. And I've only been fortunate enough to stand on that stage one time, and that's another thing. Once you do it once, you want to do it again. And I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that we can't do it this year. And there's one thing about it. You gotta think you can do it, or you're not going to accomplish that. So as we're speaking, and all these people that work on that Kodak Chevrolet, we feel like we can stand on the stage. That's our goal. But on the other side of that, we've got to win races and get to qualifying good. If you do all that stuff, then it's just going to fall in your lap, and it's going to happen.
Is this the week of Bobby Hamilton's coming out party? I tell you what, Ned, he loves Martinsville. The last 3 races hasn't finished lower than 3rd. The last 6 races hasn't finished lower than 8th, and that dates back to 1995.
Of course, all that success came in a Pontiac, and you know, we haven't talked much about that this week, about the car brands. Don't think it makes a bit of difference in the world at the Martinsville Speedway. Still to come on this edition of Inside NASCAR, the mailbox, right after this.
Is being an owner-driver harder than it looks? We'll look at Darrell Waltrip's decision to sell the number 17 and talk with the new owner, Tim Beverly. Plus, we'll go one-on-one with the pilot of the Tide Ride, Ricky Rudd in Focus. That's all next week Inside NASCAR.
The Inside NASCAR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Lite. Our question today is from Sandy Brittingham from Honeybrook, Pennsylvania. Since pit road speeds differ from track to track, how does NASCAR determine the pit road speed limit?
Hi, I'm Tim Sullivan, Manager of Communications for the NASCAR Busch Series. Sandy, to answer your question, NASCAR sets the pit road speed really according to track size. A place like Daytona, we may have a pit road speed of 55 miles an hour, and a place like Hickory, where we're at this weekend, we have a pit road speed of 35 miles an hour. We adjust those speeds accordingly to the track size, safety in the pits, and how many cars we have in the field. Sandy, thanks for writing in.
If you have a question for the Inside NASCAR mailbox, write us at Inside NASCAR, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. Or email us at inside.nascar@sunbeltvideo.com. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Lite jacket and a cap and shirt from Chase Authentics, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR.
Well, fans, that's all the time we have for this show. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. Tyler, we go from the shortest track on the circuit, the Martinsville Speedway, the Goodies 500 this weekend, to the longest track on the circuit, the Talladega Super Speedway, and the Die Hard 500 next week.
2.66 miles in length, Ned. The biggest track on the circuit, like you said, the Super Speedway, restrictor plate racing. Throw the rules out the window. Maybe at a track like Martinsville, where setup is a lot more important. Talladega, you're just putting the pedal to the metal and driving the car.
It's just outright speed there, and we'll be there to cover it. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.
Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Miller Lite, who reminds you that whenever you feel good, it's Miller time. The 1998 Team Simpson Racing Catalog is now available. For more information, call 800-71-RACING or visit the website at simpsonraceproducts.com. Ground transportation is provided by Glavelle, the official van conversion company of NASCAR. Glavelle, the choice of NASCAR tracks, teams, and drivers. Call 800-445-2825 for a dealer near you. Communications provided by Racing Radios, the two-way radio provider of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Busch Series, and Craftsman Truck Series.